Facebook, Apple, Amazon, Netflix, and Google. These 5 companies have a reputation for paying some of the most exorbitant salaries and offering the best perks in the world, at least to tech workers. Google, for example, has a median salary of $295,000 per year, while Facebook comes in at $292,000 per year. And that's just the median. If you have any sort of seniority within these companies, you'll be making closer to $500,000 per year, if not more. 20 years ago, these types of salaries were only offered to C-suite executives, but these tech companies have made them more common than ever. Aside from these insane pay packages, many tech companies also have generous work-from-home policies and unlimited vacation time. Considering these extraordinary perks, working at these companies is the top career goal for many, and getting a job at one of these companies is extremely difficult. At Google, for instance, the chances of scoring a job for the average applicant is just 0.2%. Hearing this, you would think that the people who make it to the other side would be extremely loyal and stick around for decades. But this is actually not the case. In fact, these companies not only rank at the top of the salary lists, but also at the top of the turnover lists. The average tenure of employees at these companies is usually no more than 2 years. Now, it should be noted that this study measures tenure and not turnover, so it is a bit skewed. These companies are always hiring new employees and growing their workforces, so naturally the average tenure is going to skew towards 0. With that being said though, it's no secret that these companies have high turnover. If you know people within these companies, you know that most of them jump around every few years, and this is the same case with most of their co-workers as well. Not to mention the thousands of YouTube videos and Reddit posts about quitting FAANG. So why in the world do the best places to work also have the highest turnover? One of the top reasons many FAANG engineers aren't enticed to stay at their jobs is because the salary isn't that big of a deal for them. This isn't to say that they're ungrateful for their opportunities or that they don't care about money. When they enter the industry, they probably very much cared about the high compensation and cool perks. However, by the time they're 10 years into the industry, most of them simply achieve financial freedom. Now, they don't become centimillionaires or billionaires, but they almost always become multimillionaires, if not decamillionaires. But wait a minute, even if you're getting paid $300,000 per year, this only comes out to $3 million within 10 years. And by the time you deal with California's taxes and living expenses, you'd be lucky to be left with $1 million. So how did these guys manage to save up over $5 million or $10 million? Well, the answer lies in stock compensation. Every entry-level software engineer at Facebook earns $42,000 worth of stock compensation every single year. You just have to get promoted once for this number to nearly double to $81,000 per year. And by the time you get your second or third promotion, your stock compensation itself is worth 6 figures, if not multiple 6 figures. Also, it's not like this money is being invested into a 401k or the S&P 500. This money is literally being invested into the fastest growing companies in the world. Over the past 10 years, Facebook grew 21x, Amazon grew 21x, Apple grew 13x, Netflix grew 90x, and Google grew 10x. Now, let's say you ended up at the slowest grower, which is Google, in 2012, and that you decide to stick around for 10 years. Maybe you start at the lowest level, which is level 3, and make it to level 5. This would mean that your average stock compensation during this time period would be $83,000 per year. We can even estimate conservatively and call it $70,000 per year. We can also say that you're a financial idiot and that you live paycheck to paycheck, you don't contribute to your 401k, and that you have no savings. As long as you don't sell your stock compensation, you would enjoy an annual growth rate of 27.8%, and you'd be left with $2.6 million by the end of 10 years, and that's the worst case scenario. If you were to do the same thing at Netflix, which was the fastest growing of the bunch, you'd enjoy an annual growth rate of 61%, which would leave you with $13.3 million. If you jumped around every couple of years like most of these guys do, you probably would have ended somewhere in between those two numbers, likely $5 to $10 million, and that's just stock compensation. If you take advantage of these companies' 401k plans and invest in the S&P 500 yourself, You can easily boast a net worth of over $10 million by the time you're in your mid-30s. When you're in such a position, earning more money gives you basically zero tangible value. People who are still pursuing wealth after this point are simply playing the money game and seeing how high they can get. But in terms of daily life, earning more money gives them no additional value and they can retire at any time. So it's no wonder why FAANG salaries are not enough to retain these employees. As you can see, the vast majority of FAANG employees become financially free at a very young age, so they're not driven to stay at a company just for the salary. But even if they were driven by just the salary, it would still be in their best interest to not stay at the same company. Here's the thing, when you stay at the same company, at best you'll earn a 3 to 5% raise every year. If you switch companies strategically, however, you can squeeze in a 10 to 20% raise every couple of years. And when you do this for a prolonged period of time, the person who constantly switches jobs ends up earning a lot more than the loyal employee. According to Forbes, employees who stay at companies for longer than 2 years are paid 50% less on average. Now, this isn't to say that you should switch companies every 24 months, because that'll likely become a red flag very quickly. But it is in your best interest to switch periodically, as in every 5 to 7 years, and this is especially true in the FAANG world. While it's extremely difficult to get into FAANG, once you're in and have a couple of years under your belt, it's comically easy to switch between these companies. Here's the thing, the reason acceptance rates at FAANG companies are so low is not because these companies don't need more talent. These companies are always desperate for more talent, and the reason acceptance rates are so low is because it's extremely difficult to find employees that are on the caliber that they're looking for. But if you've already passed the screening process of one of their competitors, they can be pretty confident that you'll be a good hire. FAANG companies are infamous for poaching employees from competitors. In fact, they're almost always embroiled in a bunch of lawsuits regarding stealing employees and intellectual property and things along those lines. So, as top-tier FAANG talent, you can use this rivalry amongst these companies to maximize your own compensation. Something else to note is that switching to other FAANG companies is not their only option. In many cases, they go on to found their own companies. And given that these guys have intelligence, experience, and networks, the odds are very much stacked in their favor. This is why companies like Xiaomi, Pinterest, Shift Technologies, Upstart, and YouTube were all founded by ex-Silicon Valley employees. Imagine if Eric Yuan stayed at Cisco instead of founding Zoom, or if Reid Hoffman stayed at PayPal instead of founding LinkedIn. More times than not, these guys have their eyes on targets that are much larger than just $10 to $15 million. Oftentimes, they're looking for hundreds of millions, if not billions. So they're not going to stick around at Google just so they can get a few $100,000 and free food. And given that FAANG recruits the absolute best talent in the world, it's not surprising that many of their employees have such ambitions. For most of them, it's just a matter of time until they outgrow their roles at FAANG. While larger goals and financial freedom often play a factor in FAANG employees jumping ship, these are not the only reasons. Oftentimes, it just comes down to employees burning out and either wanting to take it slow or get a fresh start. We commonly hear about how great it is to work at these companies, but a lot of that is simply because that's how these companies want us to perceive them. All of these companies are master marketers when it comes to selling their products, and it's no different when it comes to recruiting. They want us to think that their jobs are the absolute best, when in reality their jobs are actually super stressful. But wait a minute, don't FAANG companies have extremely generous vacation policies and paid time off and things like that? Well, yes, they do, but here's the cool thing for them. These companies don't have to be the bad guys to cultivate an extremely competitive and stressful working environment. They don't need to implement cutthroat managers and directors or hang scary deadlines over your head. When you place thousands of the smartest and the most competitive individuals together, it's only natural that they're gonna try to outdo each other. You don't need to scare them or threaten them to work hard and not take vacations. These guys are naturally not gonna take vacations because they want to shine. They want that next promotion, they want that higher status, and they want to boost their egos. They all have their own selfish reasons for working hard, and they're all highly motivated, which works out perfectly for these companies. The companies can be the good guys offering great salaries and awesome perks, while the employees end up working 60 hours per week or more by themselves. Many of these guys thrive under these working conditions and they end up as a VP at a FAANG company or a C-suite executive at a startup. But many also burn themselves out and end up scaling back or switching companies. This is why most employees at Apple report struggling with burnout, and why almost half of Apple and Amazon employees don't have a close friend at work. This is also why only about half of employees at most FAANG companies are actually happy at their jobs. The only exception to this rule is Netflix, and the reason they have such happy employees is because they lean into a contractor model that turns over employees even faster. So, most of their employees never even get past the honeymoon phase. Personally, I've seen this play out in real life. In high school, I had a computer science teacher from FAANG and a coach that was from the NFL. While both of these guys were from completely different industries, I think their reasoning for taking such a massive pay cut were identical. They were simply burnt out from always having to perform at their peak ability. Now, I should also mention that the computer science teacher has since returned to FAANG. So clearly, these guys can never truly suppress their inner urge to constantly progress in their careers. But at the same time, they're never truly satisfied at any one of these jobs. They're constantly in this limbo state where they're hopping jobs every few years, perpetually trying to find inner peace. In the end, while FAANG companies love trying to convince us that they're the best places to work, it's simply not true. Job satisfaction is usually not derived from high salaries or fancy perks. Virtually all the jobs with the highest satisfaction have something to do with helping others, whether that be providing educational services or therapy. And at FAANG, all you're usually doing is making the biggest companies in the world even bigger. There's also the whole ethical and moral dilemma as well. Google and Facebook are notorious for privacy concerns. Now, none of this is to say that you shouldn't pursue a job at FAANG. FAANG is an outstanding place to build your career and achieve financial freedom. But what FAANG isn't is a place to achieve a long-term zen. And that's why turnover at FAANG is so high. Would you leave a job at FAANG? Comment that down below. Also, drop a like if you wish you had a FAANG salary. And of course, consider checking out our Discord community to suggest future video ideas and consider subscribing to see more questions logically answered. But until then, I'm Hari, and I'll see you guys on the next one.